VocalEye Almost Live Zoom. Practice as Ritual. Ritual as Practice. Hosted by Amy Amantea. With special guests Fiona Wright and Jade Sullivan.
A big welcome to you all to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amy Amantea. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director here at VocalEye. I'm your host for these Almost Live events, and I'm a member of the blind community. And with my greatest thanks and gratitude to you all for joining us on a Wednesday after a Wednesday after a Wednesday for year after a year after a year. Thank you so much for spending your Wednesdays in the Almost Live space with us. Thank you for sharing your stories, your testimonials, the impact that our programming has made on you, your hard-earned dollars, your time. We are grateful for all of those things. So keep them coming. We read those letters. We share them with our funders. We like to know, and I like to share space with you all because I consider you all found family, chosen. What is that? Chosen family. Because we built quite a community here, and I appreciate each and every one of you. If folks happen to be joining us on our YouTube channel, you are just as important to myself and to our VocalEye community. We hope that you interact with us by hitting those like and subscribe buttons, that share button. You can connect with us on our website at vocaleye.ca. You can subscribe to our newsletter as well. You can just check out what we're doing on our socials because we're always doing something kind of fun and interesting. Well, we think so anyway, so please connect with us because we'd like to connect with you. VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and unceded or stolen lands of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. So tonight we're going to have a special presentation, some highlights from the Carleton University Art Gallery, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But there was a phrase in sort of the breakdown, the blurb of what tonight's programming was going to offer that I've lifted to do some research about tonight's land acknowledgement. And so this is just a little bit from that blurb, this excerpt. And it says, the range of artworks, so for tonight's highlights, the range of artworks and artistic approaches included in tonight's presentation draws attention to the role of knowledge gained via extra-rational modes, such as dreams and visions, in creating connections to lost knowledge. So that's the important bit. Right? So we're drawing attention to the role of knowledge that is gained through dreams and visions and how it's creating connections to lost knowledge. So this seemed really relevant to me in what I have heard a lot of Indigenous peoples speak about. And so I wanted to see if I could dig more about the relationship to this topic, in particular to Indigenous folks, because I know we're going to learn about this topic in particular to other community folks. So I want to share with you a bit of what I learned. Let me read some of this to you. Indigenous peoples across the world have long held dreams and visions as sacred, meaningful, and powerful tools for connection. Connection to spirit, connection to ancestors, connection to the land, and to knowledge that colonial systems attempted to suppress or erase. While practices vary widely between nations, here are some shared themes in how dreams and visions connect Indigenous peoples to lost or ancestral knowledge. Dreams as teachings. In many Indigenous worldviews, dreams are not random or meaningless. They are teachings. They can offer guidance, warnings, insights, or connections to people, places, or beings. Dreams may come from ancestors or spirits, and their meanings are often interpreted with care and community. Indigenous knowledge keepers. So this section is vision quests and ceremonial dreaming. Some Indigenous cultures, such as many Plains nations, have traditions of vision quests, ceremonial practices that involve fasting, solitude, and prayer in nature. These are spiritual journeys meant to invite visions that reveal purpose, identity, or direction, often connecting the seeker with ancestral or sacred knowledge. Reclamation of knowledge through dream. In the wake of colonization, residential schools, and cultural genocide, many Indigenous peoples turned to dreams and visions as ways to reclaim language, song, ceremony, and medicine. What was taken or hidden, as often said, to quote, return in dreams. And many elders speak of dreams as reposition of knowledge that lives beyond written history. In oral traditions and dreams, so as stories, dreams are often shared orally and become part of the collective memory. They were told in families and gatherings and in ceremonies passed on like stories. In this way, dreams contribute to the intergenerational transmission of culture, even across, the transmission of culture. Dreams as relational and land-based dreams are not just personal, they are part of a larger web of relations. Indigenous dreaming often reflects a relational, worldwide view. Dreams may carry messages from animals, plants, landforms, and ancestors, reinforcing kinship, ties, and ecological responsibility. So dreams are connected to lots of things and held very sacred in many Indigenous communities, and as you can see, are tied in many ways to the visions and the connection to lost language, lost culture, lost storytelling, peoples, and land that have been lost and or hidden and or taken. So I think that there is intersectionality here, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that and how it connects with other communities on this Wednesday, May the 28th, 2025, as we bring in some highlights on this live event number 184. And this one is highlights from a described tour at the Carleton University Art Gallery. And the exhibition is Practice as Ritual, Ritual as Practice. And I've got two special guests with me in the space. This evening, we've got Fiona joining us, who has been in the space with us many, many times. And a new friend in the space, we've got Jade with us. So let's invite both Fiona and Jade into the space.
Hi, everyone.
Friends, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Jade. I'm just going to get your squares spotlit here.
Mm.
So we can have all three of us.
Lovely.
So let's maybe start by doing a little bit of background here. So Fiona, want to give us a little bit of starting background on Carleton University Art Gallery and a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to be back in this space. Thank you again for inviting us. So my name's Fiona Wright, and I'm the educator at the Carleton University Art Gallery. And so Carleton University Art Gallery, we're the university art gallery for Carleton University in Ottawa on unceded Algonquin territory. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to be in that position for like 10 plus years at this point. And it was, one of the things I love most about this job is that, we get a couple new exhibitions in every few months, and, just kind of speaking to that, those knowledges, Amy, that you were talking about. And so as the educator, I love to, learn about the way that these artists, process this knowledge and bring it into public spaces like ours. So, this was a really great exhibition to have in this space, which was last fall. So this exhibition was on display at Carleton University Art Gallery in the fall of 2024.
Okay. Thank you for the background. Jade, you're new to the VocalEye space, so welcome. Thanks for joining us. I should remind folks that you all are joining from Ottawa, so you're joining from the future. And we do have other folks in the space that are joining from the future. And of course, everybody's tired of this joke, but I say, what's for dinner? Because I'm like, how was dinner? I haven't had one yet. What are the lottery numbers? The same. So Jade, give us a little bit of background about who you are and how you're related to CUAG and this exhibition.
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Jade Sullivan. I am like the educator-in-residence at Carleton University Art Gallery, working with Fiona, amazing person to work with. I was doing the exhibitions, which one we're going through tonight, which is Practice as Ritual / Ritual as Practice, a tongue tie, if you will. And the other one was A Dream of Return. Both of these, both talking about memory, diasporic knowledge, and all the themes that we're going to get into tonight. I'm also a graduate at Carleton University as well, so very much embedded in that place. I don't know any other background, but you'll get to know me, I'm sure.
If the term diasporic knowledge is new to some folks, Jade, can you
Yeah.
just share what that means?
Yeah, so diasporic or the diaspora, dyad, multiple terms, refers to a place in which, for example, people who have migrated out of that country, the original country would be their diaspora. They're in the diaspora, their country is like home. For example, if you come from New Zealand and you're in Canada, you would be in the diaspora, but your home or your original place you come from is New Zealand. So diasporic knowledge is associated with the knowledge outside of the home country you come from or the home place nation that you come from and that knowledge barrier. So as we know, like Canada is a very multicultural nation and we are a melding pot of everything possible. So within that, there's a lot of diasporic knowledge because people are coming from different places and bringing their knowledge from their place, the countries which they're coming from, or their nations, etc., and bringing that knowledge here and creating like a more intersectional, more diverse knowledge base than a typical unilateral one or unilateral one.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's quite a definition to unpack.
I know. We'll get into it and we'll talk about very like basic terms. I know I just like mouthful, but we can talk about very basically. And also my cat will be talking the entire time.
Well, your cat is not allowed to appear unless you tell us the cat's name. That's
Okay. She won't. She hates jumping, but her name's Princess.
Princess.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
bring her up one time.
Princess. So now we just need to know what kind of cat is Princess. What does Princess look like?
Okay, so Princess is a calico long hair cat. So she is white, orange, black, and a lot of gray because she's getting old. She's 13. She's very
13.
Yeah, she is.
Wow.
She's very petite and small, has the smallest little paws in the world. Very pink, cute button nose, green eyes, and she meows a lot because she's an old lady. So that's pretty much.
Calicos are my favorite.
They are. Okay, well, I'll bring her up before the end of the night.
Okay. Well, welcome Princess then to the VocalEye space. Here we go. Okay, anything we need to any way we want to start this exhibition? Do we want to preface it in some kind of way? Do we want to share any background about the exhibition itself before we just sort of jump right on in, or do we want to jump right on in? Because you two are the experts on what we're going to experience tonight. So I want to make sure that
Well, I think the only thing that's jumping to my mind, because I think Jade is going to read the intro panel, but just the way that we got the exhibition. The exhibition is a touring exhibition, so it originated in a gallery in Toronto, and then it traveled to multiple cities, and as you'll learn, this is the artists in this exhibition. It was a kind of reunion of them from a previous exhibition that they had done in the 1980s, and so it was special to have the exhibition travel to Ottawa because one of the original touring cities was also Ottawa. So we were really happy to have it. So I think, I think it did go to Vancouver, and it was in Toronto, and Ottawa, and maybe an East Coast destination. But yeah, so it was nice to have it in Ottawa.
How long did you have it in Ottawa for?
It was in the fall. It was like mid-September to kind of mid-December. Yeah.
Okay. And I know that we've got some image descriptions that are going to be shared. When the exhibition was in the gallery, were those image descriptions available at that time? Like, was there accessibility built in around this exhibition?
No, there wasn't. Yeah, that's a good question. No, there was all the kind of the extended labels that Jade's going to be reading come from the curator, and Andrea Fatona, from a text that she wrote. And so sometimes they include sometimes they include descriptions, but yeah, not in the way that that this script, the script is designed.
Awesome. So you created all the descriptions then specifically for our evening?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Jade, anything you want to add before we
Just generally, I said before, I can speak fast. So if I am speaking fast, just tell me to slow down, and I have no problem with that. Or just message me and just be like, you're talking too fast. Because I don't want to linger too long, but I also want you to get the full feel. So just let me know.
Great.
That's it.
We'll do our best to keep you on pace.
Okay, thank you.
Not too fast, not too slow. Be on pace. All right. Well, I'm certainly excited. Maybe we I guess we got to bring up our first image. Is that what we're doing and reading the panel on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, so I'll kind of fade into the background.
All right.
Unless I think of something really scintillating. But,
all right. Sounds good, Fiona. And we know you're not far away.
Okay, so we're gonna get started. The first image you see on this screen is the exhibition installation, or the main gallery where it is. So the Carleton University Art Gallery composition is 2 floors in the shape of an L. So the exhibition that we're visiting today is on the mezzanine, which is a long room on the 2nd floor that forms the stem of the L, so the longest part. So the photograph on the screen shows the exhibition from the 2nd floor entrance, as if you're walking in. A little bit about the gallery space's layout. So it's built like a balcony above the 1st floor. So while there is a long wall on the right-hand side, the other side is a railing spanning the same distance. There are 3 small walls, equal distance alongside the long part of the wall on the right, and it divides the room into 4 smaller rooms. Throughout the space, the railings are open, so it creates a very open feeling as you go through the gallery. And on the ground, you could see some gray carpeting. So entering this exhibition, the walls have been painted white, which contrasts the often colorful artworks in the space. There are quite a few artists in this exhibition, so the space has a very full feeling with many different materials and kinds of installations. The first room, or the bay, has a black section on the wall. That's the intro panel. At the top reads, "Practice as ritual / ritual as practice." The intro panel reads this, written by curator Andrea Fatona. "Practice as ritual as practice" presents current work by 10 Black women artists who have participated in the exhibition Black Women, When and Where We Enter. The nationally toured exhibition was the first to address the exclusion of Black women artists in the visual landscape in Canada. It was presented at 5 venues across Canada in 1989, including Houseworks Cafe in downtown Ottawa. Practice as ritual as practice features primarily new commission works, including paintings, photography, text, installations, video, augmented reality, and sculpture. The exhibition attests and affirms to the heterogeneity of perspectives and forms that constitute Black Canadian women's art today. It highlights the sustained aesthetic and everyday practices of these artists, who critically challenge the structures that delineate Black women's lives in the current moment. The title of the exhibition refers to the overarching theme that emerges in the artworks, one tending to the Black histories, presents, and futures, and the labor involved in such practice. Other important themes include spirituality, memorialization, commemoration, play, trans historical memory, anti-Black racism, and intergenerational knowledge transfer. The range of artworks and artistic approaches featured draws attention to the role of knowledge gained via rational modes such as dreams, visions, in creating connections to lost knowledge, to kin, and the deep desire for Black people's liberation. So that was a mouthful, and it was quite a read. I'm going to pause for some questions or clarifications if anybody has. But yeah.
What does that all mean?
Okay.
To put that into plain language, what does that mean?
Okay, so in summary, so this exhibition is pretty much a collection of artworks from 10 Black women in Canada talking about how Canada's art scene, art landscape often excludes Black women's experiences. And within this, they are talking about the importance of not only the work that they're doing in creating these artworks and creating these knowledge and like these representations, but also a way of like commemorating the past. So like commemorating the ancestors that came before, the practices that have learned, spirituality, all those stuff. So the exhibition touches on a bunch of different topics and every artist touched on different things. We're going to be talking about intergenerational knowledge transfer, which is like from the elders or any like ancestors or generations before you. They can talk about things like playing and the representation of toys and other things. So we're going to go through it. And again, yeah, it's a lot of words and a lot of descriptions, but feel free to stop me along the way if you don't understand anything or if you need more clarification.
Jade, I think I remember you saying that these were commissioned works.
Yes, they are. They're all commissioned, and most of them are new.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, can you share with us just a quick bit about the commission process, if you know anything about how that came to be? Like, were artists given a prompt or a theme, or what is that?
I can come back. I can come back in
that's
and
a Fiona
do that.
question. See, the voice from beyond.
Yeah.
Just outside the Zoom wings.
Yeah. Yes. So this exhibition, it came about because these women were part of this collective called what was the collective called? Sorry, it's in the
DAWA. It's called
DAWA.
Diasporic Artists. Sorry, the A in the middle is the one I'm forgetting, but it's pretty much diasporic women artists.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Diasporic African women artists.
Exactly.
Maybe, yeah. So they were part of this collective in the 80s, and then they all kind of went their separate ways, but maintained their artistic practice. And then, yeah, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they got back together and decided to organize this exhibition. So they wrote a very successful grant to the Canada Council to put together this exhibition. So and it gave each of them the funding and the resources to create these new works. So and yeah. And I think so some of them, so yeah, as Jade said, a lot of them are new, and then some of them, because the women have passed away, then they selected work from the artist's archive.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. The oldest commission one we're going to talk about today is from 2000, so they're all relatively new. So we're going to do a little bit of more of a deep dive, but before we continue, does anybody else have any other questions about the exhibition?
I think we're good to go. We're going to take questions from the audience at the end. So
amazing. All right, so let's go on to the next image. And you can keep it a little zoomed for everybody to see. So this sculpture is by DZI AN, the artist DZI AN. It's called Transition, made in 2022. It's a mixed media installation. So this one, so this is the first art we're gonna examine. Again, it's called Transition. So it is a 10-sided tent-like structure, as you can see, or it's paneled on the sides. They're created using bamboo sticks for the frame and a white gauzy fabric, kind of like the things that you think about of like hospitals, like how it's that cheeseclothy fabric. Um, that white gauzy fabric on the sides and top. So visitors can actually come and walk around in the tent and enter through an opening panel, and they can also go inside without having to bend their heads. Inside is a sculpture of two life-size people. The elder sits on a wooden stool, and between her legs sits a smaller youth on a small brown felt blanket with a tree designed in it. Their bodies are made out of paper mache and wire structure. The elder wears an outfit of the same white gauzy fabric of the tent with a scarf around her head. The youth wears a dark gray felted shirt and pants. Both of their feet are bare. The elder leans over the youth, hands held like aloft as if they're braiding their hair. Both figures have a head full of hair, textured hair, taken from the artist and the artist's friend's real hair. The youth's the youth's hair is dark, and the elder's hair is a varying shades of white and gray. At the top of each side of the tent corners is a small wired sculpture of people engaging in various activities, such as drumming and dancing. And close by this sculpture or this piece, there's a four-page story written by the artist, which is connected to the installation. The narrative describes an elder from an unnamed African community who finds a youth in the market who's in need of protection. She takes them up a trek to the cave at the top of the hill and gives the youth traditional healing teachings. In the morning, the elder has passed on, and the youth walks back to the village. They encounter a woman who is giving birth and is able to assist using the elder's teachings. Outside of the tent, there are several traditional African instruments like a hand drum and a balafon, a type of wooden xylophone created using different sized African goods and wooden plates. So right now I'm going to read the extended label for this artwork, which was written by curator Andrea Fontona. Storytelling, care, communal knowledge, as well as the co-creation and dissemination of the narrative are central to the work of DZI AN. It presents the notion of the story as communal and as something to be gifted to the receiver to ensure its evolution. DZI AN's sculptural installation Transition is a meditation on life and death, knowledge passed on through storytelling and intersubjective engagement. It is a visual narrative between a younger and older woman, achieved through the artist's use of light and shadow to draw on screens to form a hut-like structure and housing for these two women. Shadows bring the chapters of the story into being. So, this is the extended label. Just following your lead, Amy, we're gonna leave all questions to the end, or do you mind if I ask questions throughout?
We're going to leave audience questions to the end.
Okay.
And you and I are going to have a dialogue in between.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to flip to the next image.
Well, let's unpack this one for a second.
Okay, yeah.
Unless it's part of the same installation. The next
No, this is a different installation. I mean, this is the same installation. So let's have some questions for this one by DZI AN.
Yeah. So the idea is, it actually kind of reminds me of a wedding tent. You know, when you're out with the way that the gauze is draped. Is there any significance to the type of fabric or the color of the fabric that the artist has used in this?
The artist didn't explicitly say there was a reason by their use of that specific fabric or the color. However, I would assume that because it is with the overhead lighting, it becomes very transparent and translucent. So as if people can see or peer into it. So kind of like, again, connecting to that knowledge transfer and like connection, like people don't have to go in to see. So I think there's an intentionality by using the fabric as well as the usage of like shadows and like light. It causes different dimensions and shadows because the little the little wired hanging sculptures, they also cause like reflection on the draping if the light is moved. So it's kind of as if it's like projections. Um, but yeah, I think there was no explicit reason why they used that, but I believe it was to kind of just emphasize the shadows and as well as like transparency within the knowledge sharing.
Right. Because the piece that you just read to us also references the fact that there's a cave that they
Mhm.
visit.
Yeah.
So again, I'm thinking about this structure as also in representation of the cave, like the
Mhm.
elders in the cave and the youth is in the cave, and it's like we as the witnessers have been invited into the cave to sort of, I don't
Yeah.
know, witness this moment, this transfer of knowledge, perhaps.
Yeah.
Whether we would be outside or inside, this the kind of the concept still exists that we would be witnessing this transfer of knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're able to bear witness to this exchange that
Yeah.
she's describing, but also kind of like welcomes you in a little bit as well. It's like it's not a private practice. It's more something that they want to share. It's for community to learn from. So that's a really good observation. Um,
I have an ignorant question, and I'm not sure how to ask this, so pardon my ignorance. But with my low vision, so there's these two people in here, and you mentioned that they were two representative of two people from unknown African
mhm.
cultures,
Yeah.
and that they were barefoot. The bare feet, are they made out of plaster
Yeah,
or
so sorry, go ahead.
no? Well, because uh, this is my bias and my assumption, but the feet and probably my sight level, the feet have a plaster color to them.
Yeah. So they're both made out of paper mache,
Right.
and the artists intentionally kept their pieces white with the paper mache. They didn't color them or paint them a different color. And I believe Diane, I had a conversation about this with them, and pretty much there was an intentionality behind not painting it because they didn't want it to. I feel like when they try to explain it a little bit, it was more so just like as a statement or a resistance to having to color the skin a specific way to tell that story.
Yep.
As well as they are of a lighter skin tone. So also I think that has a connection to it as well. I'm not too sure exactly why they kept it that color, but I kind of like it because it contrasts the other colors a little bit so they stand out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to know why the artist maintained the white paper mache color while highlighting like people from an unnamed African community. So, yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, it certainly is because you also referenced the fact that the hair comes from people that the artist knows. So
Mhm,
the assumption again is, I mean, we don't have a list of all of these people, but the assumption is that it comes from people from the artist's community.
mhm,
So you've got, uh, bodies that are of white paper mache with dark colored hair that are from potentially community members. So there's
mhm.
that juxtaposition. And maybe somewhere in there, there's this, again, this is where my white settler brain and my bias comes in. But my outsider's understanding of some of the cultural knowledges is that folks from Africa have all different shades of different levels of darkness, right? And so that can be quite a conversation within community as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the artist did say that they collected this hair from themselves over the years, their
Yeah.
friends, their family, I think their daughter as well. And they all again compiled it for this piece. If you could do me the favor, Brick, if you could zoom in on on the pieces a little bit for me. Um, yeah, so again, we know that people from the diaspora, specifically, yeah, that's perfect. Specifically, those from the African diaspora come in a variety of hues, colors, features, and ethnicities, and everything else. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting how um, they kind of like left a blank canvas for you to convey what you think these people may look like or may not look like.
Yeah.
Um, So it's, yeah, I think it just highlights a lot of diversity, and I don't think Zian, the artist, tried to like restrict themselves to a specific imagery or understanding.
Mhm.
Um, and I know for a fact, Xian came from the foster system, and they often talked about issues with identity and sourcing themselves in
Right.
these lands as somebody who has diasporic connections, but yeah, often face like issues of like colorism and texturism, things like that. So I think that's also important them to highlight, just like kind of highlight the diversity and the complexities of like Blackness and diasporic being an identity.
Thank you for unpacking that, Jade, because as you know, folks from the blind community, we would often come into a piece like this, and without being, this is why I brought up the skin color, is because without being told specifically, that's a gap in our knowledge base,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't necessarily know that this was intentionally done by an artist,
Hmm.
because you know we're talking about it being part of the diasporic. We're talking about where the artist is referencing the hair. We make all of these assumptions, but our visual knowledge is cut off. So we don't get that visual knowledge that the sighted community is getting, that's putting these pieces together that we're talking about, to be
Yeah.
able to make those connections. And so unless somebody says, well, what's interesting is, you know, the way that the artist is perhaps put the pieces together to represent, you know, the every person on the continent, or
Mhm.
made them featureless enough so that it could be anybody from any different culture on the continent, or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Which is one of the things that I find fascinating about art, and fascinating about the intersection of blindness and access to art. Because we
Mm.
get into this place where we have to have uncomfortable conversations so that we have access, and finding our ways through places of language that we don't necessarily have the language for.
Yeah.
But we want to be part of the conversation, and how do we make safe spaces for that as well? So I very much appreciate you offering some context around this, because otherwise it would just be two people in a tent.
No, but that's also, thank you for like spotlighting that. And I'll also try better to like describe things more in detail so we can get more of an understanding. But yeah, I think it's very important that we're all in a space that we learn and unlearn and relearn things. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have any questions, like there are no bad questions. I mean, they could be, but like I doubt it would be bad. But yeah, feel free to like ask questions. I've had like times where I didn't know things and you don't know what you don't know. So feel free to just ask questions. Even if like I start describing something and you're like, I don't completely understand what you're showing me or talking about, ask me to describe further and I'm happy to.
That's great. This is quite a large installation, um,
Yeah,
because it is like this tent structure is big enough to put like a round table where you sit 12 or 15, 16 people at, right? Like you could have a dinner party on
yeah,
this tent. So it's quite large.
yeah.
Um,
If you zoom out one more time, you could see, I remember I came in here with, I think it was a class and it fit like at least 15 or 12 people in
yeah.
there comfortably. Again, it got hot after 1 minute, but it definitely has a lot of space. I think it's 10 by 10
Mhm.
or 10 by 6 feet. So it's pretty large. It takes up a huge space in on the second floor on the mezzanine. Like it's really prominent, but I
Yeah.
think that's also very captivating
Yeah.
in itself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay,
Let's take a look at the next one. Thanks, Jade.
you're welcome. Okay, so this one is by the artist Winsom. It's called Resilient, made in 2022. They used acrylic, ink, gold leaf, ivory tusk, brass enslavement collar, and copper wire on wood and canvas to make this piece. So this is a large painting installed right where the wall meets the ceiling, and it hangs down unframed until the bottom curves down onto a low plinth on the carpeted floor, so like a low platform. The canvas has been painted bright red. In the center is a triangle outlined in gold. At the center of the triangle, there is a detailed illustration of 5 or 6 elephant heads. And right below that triangle, that gold triangle, is an even more simplified version of 2 elephants standing together. Around the triangle, there's a text that is like following the triangle shape. And the text reads, "Faded stamps on their departed father's passport. Upper Volta, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Sudan, and Senegal. The tusks proudly display in a foreign land, open quote, a conversation piece in her father's home, close quote. The tusk's original lost forever, identity never known, like African slaves, identity unknown." Okay. There are red drops of blood that have been painted on the bottom of the canvas below the elephants. At the very top, where the wall meets the ceiling, where the canvases hang, there are 9 rivets which the canvas hangs, so like 9 holes. Above those rivets is a wooden a wooden rectangle that's also painted in red. And in the center of this rectangle, there's a large elephant tusk hung that creates an arch, like a semicircle, over a brass ring the size of a hand's palm. So if you kind of see like a long red piece, and from the top you kind of see a elephant tusk, a brass ring, and then the long canvas with where you see the triangle with the elephants and the blood below. Okay.
So the elephant tusk with this brass ring under it actually has the shape of an eyebrow with an eye under it.
Yeah.
It's got that shape of an eyebrow, and the brass ring is an eye. Just so you know, for context.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a written text about this work, so I'll just read that for you quickly. Winsom's painting, Resilient, is a conversation with the nature-culture divide and the position of Black people in the dyad. Resilient is a portrait of 2 African elephants with a real ivory tusk and a brass slave ring embedded at the top of the painting. Winsom draws parallels between the ways in which nature and the Black body have been exploited as resources within the constructs and practices of colonialism and its aftermath. The work pays homage to the strategies employed by Afro-diasporic people that allow for not only the survival, but also for creating conditions to thrive within oppressive structures that deny Black people's humanity. By placing the slave ring and the elephant tucks at the apex of the painting, Winsom honors the intertwined relationship that exists between human and animal life and other animal life, while nodding to the fact that Black folk and African elephants thrive when the conditions for their survival are firm in place. So, in summary, Winsom's giving more of a description of this piece and just trying to explain that this is really a conversation between the exploitation of nature and other animals, such as the African elephant, which if those who do not know, is an endangered species, is often being hunted for its ivory tusk and other materials. So the exploitation of those animals, as well as the exploitation of Black Afro-diasporic people who have often have been suffered or exploited through the transatlantic trade of enslaved people. So just sharing that similarities, but also honoring to the fact that they are resilient and still able to make it or resist colonialism and the effects of colonialism every day. So,
Can you speak a little bit, if it's appropriate to do so, about any history about the hunting of ivory,
mm,
and how that's sort of transitioned into today? I don't know if you have any statistics about that, or what the ivory is being used for or sold for today.
I don't have a timeline for sure or like a complete
Yeah.
history, but from what I know that ivory has been hunted from time immemorial since like contact with the African continent for things like well, it's more of like a wealth status and a symbol like diamonds are.
Yeah.
So because it's such a rare commodity and takes such it's extremely hard to acquire elephant tusks because it requires most often the slaughtering of elephants.
Mhm.
Um, it's been used as a class symbol, um, and it's been heavily protected, especially in Western Africa now. There's a lot of regulations and laws. However, like everything is often still exploited and hunted. And that is what caused the African elephants to be endangered and honestly almost extinct at this point. I think that like it's obviously heavily regulated, but there's still a lot of trafficking of African ivory and tusks, and it's used for a variety of things. Of again, just as a status symbol where people just hang them in their houses, or sometimes people use it for materials and like jewelry
Mm.
or different kinds of materials. I've seen people use spoons, like literally anything you can make out of it, in a sense, just because its rarity. But yeah, I know there's a lot of like documentaries, especially from National Geographic and like Discovery, a lot of those kind of that talk a lot about that the trade, the illegal trade of or illegal trafficking of elephant and elephant tusks. But yeah, it's very interesting and I think it's still going on today very heavily, but not as exploited as it was in the past. And you can kind of like compare that to the brass ring, which is the it's the ring of Winsom's ancestors. When I spoke to them, that's what they said. Something that was passed down, I believe. Um, so like comparing the exploitation and the hunting of African elephants to the exploitation of Black bodies in Africa because of the slave trade and things like that. So they're both kind of like exploited and hunted and used for ca- capitalist gain, if you want. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it's very interesting, and I think Winsome did a great job with like putting those two as parallels because they do share a similar history.
Rick, can we zoom in on the top portion where the ivory is? Okay, I'm kind of getting what you are saying about this brass ring because it appears to be quite thick. Uh,
Yeah,
if I will, this is like a donut shape.
exactly. It's if you would think about it as like a very thick, heavy bracelet, like a wrapping around the hand. I think it was used. It is like a part of like a chain or
Okay.
a cuff for African slaves.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a very thick, heavy metal, and yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. Yep, that puts things into very specific context.
and that is also a real elephant tusk as well. So very precious, very important artifacts. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so for a piece like this, I mean, you know, y'all talked about the fact that this is touring. It's a touring exhibition. Um, what happens to a work like this after it doesn't tour anymore?
I think that's an amazing question for Fiona. Because I don't want to say it's sometimes like stored or archived or sold, but
Yeah.
Fiona would.
I think, yeah, so all of these works are, I think, owned by each of the artists. So this would just go back to Winsom. And she's based in Toronto, and she's like a very active artist. Like she shows like really regularly, and she's super respected in the
Mhm.
Canadian art world. So and she is represented by like a commercial gallery in Toronto. So I don't know if it would go, it's part of her archive, and so maybe it would be sold. But I don't know. As Jade says, like the this was part like that. The materials are so significant
Yeah.
and incredibly valuable. I don't know if she would let it. I don't know if she would let it out of her family. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder whether because the piece is very large in scale, right? So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
do you take a piece like this and hang it in your own home, and have to almost be impacted by your own artwork every day when you walk past it in a hallway, right? Or do you disassemble these pieces and put them somewhere where they are, protected and safe or whatever for, I don't even know. I don't even know what you do with this. Because selling it also is like, you're selling a piece of ivory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard to understand where this should live, because it's also very significant in terms of the conversation that needs to be had about history and about colonization and enslaved peoples and animal extinction, all sorts of things. So you don't really want to put it behind closed doors and have it decommissioned, but where is there a safe place to keep it, right?
Yeah, I think Winsome does a lot of exhibitions and tourings, not only with themselves, but I think their daughter also is an artist. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so I think they actually like this is like a traveling piece most likely. I don't think that Winsome has this in their house at all.
Yeah.
Or like it could be in an archive, but I think that Winsome would like more so display this in multiple places. But I agree. I don't think Winsome also, based on the person I know who Winsome is, I don't think Winsome would sell this piece. I think it's actually very significant to them. So, yeah. And I think throughout, I can't speak for all the other artists, but a lot of them are significant. I think they are just being like displayed or archived as like very important pieces. I don't think most of them are for sale, if any are for sale. That's the artist's choice, obviously. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, it's so incredible. I mean, as an artist myself, I've never been able to value my own work. I just don't know how to do it, right? So I envy any artist who knows how to appropriately value their work in general, because it's such a hard thing
Yeah.
to do.
I'm sure it took a lot of time deciding on the values of these pieces or the significance. I think every artist may have that suffering of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, yeah,
But these are very like well-known pieces and very popular. They've been asked to be a part of different galleries and things like that. So uh
even
yeah.
just evaluating them for insurance, right?
Oh yeah, they all have insurance, I believe, or like yeah, there's a bunch of like protections around them. They're not just like traveling by themselves.
Oh goodness. Okay. This is really, it's a little heavy, but like really important conversation, Jade.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for inviting us in. Um,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it was great. I was gonna just get Rick maybe to zoom in a little bit on these elephants and the
Yeah.
triangle in the middle, just to see if I can make out any kind of detail. Because this is painted, you said, right?
Yes, these are painted. Even if you zoom a little bit more to the center of the triangle, Rick, if you can. Okay, yeah. So you can see the vague, like the drawing of these 5 to 6 elephants in the back. They have like a little gold background and they're painted in black, white, and I think some grayscale. And yeah, they're not super they're actually very detailed compared to the ones that fall below, which are more of a simplified version of the elephants. Um, but yeah, if you look closely, and it's just like black and white
Yeah.
sketching and painting of these elephants, but in very intricate detail. And then around them in the triangle is that passage that I read earlier.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
I mean, I can't read what it says, but I can make out that the font, um, God, like the way the text is written is
Yeah.
really cool. It's almost ancient looking.
Yeah, I think this is all handwritten or hand
Yeah,
painted. So
for sure.
Winston probably has a very nice script as well. But yeah, if you would like, if I can reread that passage about what's being written around so that folks can hear that again. Um,
Sure.
if
You
that's
want to read
yeah,
it one more time and then we'll move on
yeah.
to the next
And
piece.
then you can just zoom it a little bit so everybody can see while I just read it. So the text reads, faded stamps on their departed father's passport, Upper Volta, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Sudan, and Senegal. The tusk proudly displayed in the foreign land, a conversation piece in her father's home. The tusk original lost forever, identity never known, like African slaves, identity unknown. That is what's written around the triangles of elephants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very significant, very sometimes very heavy piece, but it's okay. We're gonna get into some other ones that are a little bit more fun, I guess. So if there's no more questions, we can go to the next one.
Yeah, let's take a look at what we've got next.
Okay, so this is right beside Winsom's piece. This is by the late Khadejha McCall. It's Untitled, done in 2000, the year 2000. It's a photographic etching, silkscreen and paint on canvas. So this artwork consists of a piece of unframed canvas, 1.5 meters wide. It's about the span of my arms if I stretch them out. And it's about 10 meters or so long. Since the gallery walls are not that long, we had to come up with a creative solution to install it. So using the short end, it's hung at the top of the wall and then falls gently down to the ground. And then there's a suspended piece of wood from the ceiling that is flapped over. Um, that's about 2 feet from the wall. And then the canvas falls again on the gallery floor where it's folded back and forth a couple of times. And this kind of creates like a wave-like pattern. So if you think about a wave, that's kind of how the painting, the canvas is displayed. So one long wave and then small ones at the floor where it gathers. Um, it kind of creates and accentuates the soft fabric material of the canvas, which oftentimes canvas is stretched tightly when you making art, so it's showing the soft material of it. So there's a crisscross repetitive pattern of images that are printed across the canvas in greens, blues, reds, oranges, and yellows. So from far away, it's actually abstract, since the repetition is overlaid so many times. But each image and stamp was chosen from a particular source, like a newspaper, textiles, or photographs. Some of the images that stand out include a blue torso silhouette, a black illustration of an African sculpture, and the text in yellow saying mother. So Rick, I'm gonna actually ask you to zoom in a little bit onto that piece. As much as we can get. That front panel's perfect. Zoom in, zoom in. So we can see the black silhouette of that person on the left-hand side, bottom left side. Kind of diagonally outside of that silhouette, there is the sculpture, a black sculpture of an African, sorry, a black stamp of a African sculpture. And then it's really hard to see, but throughout there's a yellow stamp in block writing, mother, just stamped throughout it, because it's so overlaid, sometimes it's hard to see. So I'm going to read you a little bit about the extended label, about what the artist said about this piece, while you kind of observe it, and yeah, I described a little bit more. So, digging deep into the archives of cultural symbols and signs, multimedia artist Khadejha McCall's Untitled Silkscreen on Canvas addresses Afro-diasporic spiritual practices as practices of freedom. The artist draws attention to African cosmologies, as well as labor of spiritual practices and the work of the metaphysical in her imagery. Layering and repetition create a flow of images and texts that illuminate the influence of numerous ontologies, geographies, knowledges based on spiritual practices of Black people, whose cultures have often who has been shaped by transatlantic trade of enslaved subjects. African codes, an abstracted figure of a woman, and an advertisement promoting the services of a spiritual worker by the name of Mother Williams all serve to obscure the line between the worldly, the profane, and the sacred. So this is the extended label that is for Khadejha McCall's piece. Just a little bit more context. Yeah, this piece is really trying to pull together not only the lived experiences, the tangible experiences of enslaved folk, or previously enslaved subjects, and then also kind of brings together spirituality. It's bringing together, because again, there's the spiritual worker by the name of Mother Williams who had an advertisement out at that time for spiritual working. It's talking about imageries from the African sculptures, and then also the actual silhouettes of enslaved folks. So it's kind of like bringing together spiritual practices and like actual existence and culture. Uh, but yeah, I want to pause for a little bit of like questions or queries about this.
This is so when you zoom out, it's abstract. It just looks like blotches of color
Yeah,
and pattern, other than the quite large bluish colored torso, which
yeah.
kind of makes itself fairly present. When you zoom in as close as we've zoomed in, you start to get some of the details that have like been layered on top of each other over and over and over so many times that that's why it looks abstract. And it kind of reminds me a little bit like kind of like a quilt in a way. Like it's got like this patchwork kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So folks can wrap their brain around the idea of a patchwork quilt, or I don't know if this is gonna make sense from a textural perspective, but I remember those lawn chairs that were that weave. They were made out of a plastic, but they were done in
Hmm.
a basket weave. And I imagine this feels like if this was texture, it would feel like that woven basket weave stuff.
Yeah.
Because it just has that kind of crossover, kind of patchworky kind of thing to it.
Hmm.
But it's I mean the thing that's evocative about it is for me is the different sort of layers of color that
Hmm.
kind of from a distance just look like a smudge. But up close you can kind of tell that it's done on purpose to some
Yeah.
extent. I'm curious about this Mother Williams thing because you referenced Mother Williams as a spiritual worker.
Hmm.
What is a spiritual worker?
I think it can range based on where you are geographically,
Yeah.
but in this case, I believe it's like if we want to compare it to something that we know now, like if you think of like mediums, if you think about people who are psychics or palm readers, people who like connect to the spiritual or metaphysical realm, but it also could be traditional knowledge keepers, so people who are like keeping memorization of like African traditions or African spiritual religions and stuff like that. Those people hold that knowledge. So those are like spiritual workers. I don't know exactly because this is advertisement during the transatlantic slave trade. So it's possible that this person could be part of the diaspora who is using their knowledge with those who have like who are forcibly migrated to the Americas, or this could be just a person or yeah, a black woman who had engaged in some type of like spiritual workings, such as like um psychic readings, mediums, etc. So that's pretty much what it would be, but it can also be a variety of things.
And it's an advertisement, you said?
Yeah, it's from a newspaper.
Oh,
This
okay.
was yeah, this was clipped from a newspaper, and I don't remember the exact year. I wish I did. But I know this was a pretty old newspaper that Khadejha clipped this from. I feel like I remember the year.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I remember the exact year, but yeah. So it's like newspaper clippings, like the like textured pattern that you were talking about, that
Yep.
zigzag, like comes from like textiles. So you're not off when you talk about that weaving, like basket weave or kind of like what you see in like jeans, like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
feeling of denim. That's like patched throughout of it and like kind of layered. And I think the layers also kind of like connect to that like metaphysical, that the spiritual connection with the actual physical world, like all those layers, like the
Hmm.
3D, 4D, 5D, etc. So I think the layering is very intentional, and then the rest are just like from photographs and stuff like that, like stamps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me, folks who joined us last week might remember the the where Dali was talking about his work and how he would put himself in this state of mind where he was half in a dream world and half in reality
Hmm.
for his surrealism. and he would say that he would hold a set of keys in his hand and wait until like they would, he would drift into sleep until they would just fall out of his hand. And I think we've all sort of experienced that moment where you do the head nod and then you like catch yourself, right? That kind of, this feels like that sort of crossover dream world, where you're just like, oh, I'm so in that place where I'm going to like visually, if that was a thing,
Yeah.
the way, your world would get kind of fuzzy and some would say maybe trippy.
Yeah.
This feels a little bit like that now that you're talking about all these different layers and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
it's quite interesting.
When I think about it, I kind of think about like if you like if your like spirit was like moving up outside of your body, it's just like multiple layers of you.
Mhm.
Or like, yeah, just like you're not just like our physical being now in the 3D, there's many layers to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what they're connecting it. And they do say that they're connecting the worldly, which is like us here in the world, and then the profane, which is like the unknown, and then the sacred, which is like spiritual, like what people would refer to as gods or
Okay.
the universe or higher powers, whatever you want to refer to it as if you do believe in those things.
Yeah.
So like connecting all those things together,
Okay.
Yeah, very complicated, but very nice.
Wow.
I also, sorry, just can I hop in here for a
Of
second?
course. Come on in, Fiona.
The other thing is, when artists, so like I would call this technique, like juxtaposition. So all these different symbols that are from different sources, different time periods, different, maybe even like different belief systems, all kind of coming together. Often, yeah, just speaking of surrealism, like kind of around that time, they was also Dadaism. I don't know if you brought that up, but it was those artists were also using collage to try and basically like shake us out of like shake the person who's experiencing the artwork, like shake them out of the Western colonial understanding of history as one straight timeline that starts in one specific time and just goes straight forward one thing after another versus history and relationships and knowledges are so much more complicated than that. And so I love that this work, yeah, like pushes us beyond, like just pushes us to think about how do histories and knowledges, um yeah, they don't just look like a straight line, like that.
Mm.
The ancestors and our and elders, like they're so present with us.
Definitely. And I think that's a theme throughout this entire exhibition is like past, present, and future, and how that
Mm.
line is just always threaded together. Like I think about Xian's piece, the structure, where it is like we are observing in the present, but then we have the elder who's past knowledge, the youth who is future knowledge, and like how all those things are interacting at the same time.
Mm.
And how like history is not just okay, or history is not just behind us, but it's also ahead of us, it's also in the present. Very
Mm.
complicated, very philosophical, but also
Yeah.
but also
Yeah.
very like real because again, like uh things that we know and we learn are because of our past, but we're always forever learning, which is our future, and then we're here. So
Mm.
very nice melding of all those things and worlds.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Does anybody else have any questions? Well, we're taking questions at the end. Amy, do you have any comments?
No, this is really cool. It almost feels to me like um like it could be a modern piece of fabric that somebody's using for, like significant in clothing. If this artist was with us today, that they should make a clothing line.
No, I
Piece
would buy
like
from that
this.
clothing line. It is
It's
really nice.
it's fantastic. Yeah.
And
Uh,
honestly, if you were there to be in person, if anybody ever gets the privilege of being able to see this or interact with this piece, it is humongous.
yeah.
It is much larger than you would think. You can zoom out for us, Rick. It's much larger than you would think. Again, it's 10 feet, but I don't think a lot of us know what 10 feet look like unless it's actually in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 10 feet is a story. It's one story.
Yeah.
It's sizable. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sizable.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna go on to the next piece, which is my biased favorite piece. Um, That's because I've seen this up close and I really do love it. So this piece is by the late Chloe Onari. It's untitled and undated. So there's no title and there's no date. It is made with natural hand-dyed wool, yarn, stuffing, and jewelry. So the installation consists of 4 handmade dolls. They're perched onto small shelves on the wall. Each doll has a painted rectangle background on the wall behind them in either the color yellow, green, gray, or red. And each doll is made using a knitted yarn and they're about like 1.5 feet tall. So they're not huge, but they're sizable dolls. If you want to think about it, Build a Bear size or like I'm thinking of like any large doll you've ever seen that you can grab or like those porcelain dolls. Think about that size. So I'm gonna go into each one and describe them in detail. So Rick, if you could follow me along. So in the yellow rectangle first.
You zoom into the the rectangle, Rick?
Yeah, it's okay.
Unless maybe we can't.
Oh, we're getting there. Okay, there we go. So in the yellow that's perfect, thank you.
Oh yeah, look at that.
So in the yellow rectangle, the doll has light brown curly short hair. They have a lighter skin tone and their outfit is orange, gray, and yellow stripes. Their shirt is decorated with a red and purple heart in the center, and their shoes are brown with light brown tassels or like strings. So it's a little petite doll. On the beside it in a green rectangle, that doll is slightly taller with a darker toned skin, and it's wearing a silk head wrap with a little charm in the front. Their outfit is primarily gray and green yarn, and they have a little sunset on their shirt. So if we can zoom even a little bit closer so we can just get a little better view. I don't know if we can zoom in anymore, but let's see. Yeah. So we can kind of see yeah, their outfits are made out of this hand-dyed wool, shirt and pants or shirt and trousers, and they all have little shoes on. So that is the first two. So right below them is, and you can just scroll to the bottom, right below them are two other dolls. Um, Rick, you can go to the bottom for me, the next two at the bottom. Um, yeah. So in the gray rectangle to the right, the doll has short, dark gray hair that matches the same color as their skin tone, and they're wearing a gray vest with a tie and a purple shirt, like a purple kind of glittery almost shirt. Their pants are blue and red, blue on top, red to the base, and then they have on these like brown shoes with the same tasseling as the first doll. Beside that on the left, the red in the red rectangle, the doll is longer or taller, has dark hair, like dark black hair, and is a medium brown skin tone. They wear a black suit and jacket with a smart red bow tie and denim jeans. So they're all dressed really cute, I would say. They all have their own sense of fashion and style. So I'm gonna read the extended label and description for you, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So the politics of representation through playthings or toys and their role in the process of dehumanization is addressed in the work of Chloe Onari. The set of 4 black dolls created by Chloe Onari serves as an anecdote to the commercialization of racist stereotypes of Black people and foregrounds a long history of doll making by Black women. Naturally dyed and constructed out of woven hand-spun wool, these dolls are textured counterparts to prevailing racist representations of Blackness in mass-produced toys dating back to the early 20th century. Onari infuses her soft sculptures with character and specificity. By embedding the creation with emotions, elements of African culture, jewelry, and most importantly, particularly the dolls are humanized in their accuracy and provide positive images for children. So, throughout as like the piece says, as my description, I was trying to show you that they're all very unique. They all have different skin tones, hairs, outfits. Some of them are wearing jewelry, some of them are not, some of them are tall and short. And really that is to like focus in on accurate representation of Black toys, people, and playthings. Also, Chloe Onari did like the deliberate like when they were making the piece, they had larger noses and try to really reflect what Afro diasporic and African or Black bodies kind of look like, and also the variety of that, as we talked about earlier. I think in the DZI AN piece
Mm-hmm.
sculpture, talking about how um, Blackness itself is so complicated and diverse, and I think Chloe was trying to highlight that here, and highlight that oftentimes previously a lot of toys that were representative of black blackness or black children were often like stereotypical or racist or subjected to many things. So I think she was trying to make this more inclusive and representative to what people actually experience and look like. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I love this because it's so colorful and vibrant, and I love dolls since I was a kid, so I thought it was a very interesting piece. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that this has no date,
Yeah.
no title.
I think that was intentional. I think this is a
Yeah,
like forever thing though. Like just what we're talking about, past, present,
yeah,
and future. It's undateable.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of the artists definitely have untitled and undated, and I think that's very intentional from a lot of artists
yeah.
because they don't have the words to describe exactly what it is that they're, and it's also uh not in like based on the observer's perception of what it is. You know, some people can look at this as a tool of resistance. Some people can think of it as cool dolls. Some people could be like,
Right.
I don't understand this. So it could be anything. So I think that leaves it up to the spectator, you know?
It's so interesting because certainly the yellow, the green, the red, and the kind of the gray color, even the gray is at like a happy gray. It's not a sad, dreary gray.
Yeah.
Colors are like they're happy colors. You
Yeah.
know,
I think
they're
the
they're
childlike.
cool doll colors. You know,
Yeah.
um, and so you hardly think at first glance maybe that you're looking at something that is political in nature and um,
Yeah.
addresses so many more controversial topics and statements. I don't know um, what um, what like early representation of um, toys made for children who were black would look like.
Yeah. There in the past
Okay.
there have been very like negative tropes associated. So you would see, and this is like, well, probably in like the early 90s, late 17 1800s, I would say, sorry. There's a lot of like blackface dolls, so you see like stereotypical large red lips, like very much mockery, toys made after like black children or things like that. There was really low representation. There was rarely any of those already. So when they were made, it was often in a mockery, um, or something very stereotypical. And eventually we got to the evolution where we started seeing, which I would say in like the late 90s, early 2000s, started seeing more representation. So like Barbie would have a black Barbie. You would see that Cabbage Patch had different colors, American Girl doll, all the dolls and all the toys started coming out in various colors and shapes. But in still in the early 2000s there was issues with representation. It was what kind of bodies are being represented, which I think everything has problems with representation a little bit, but saying what were the displays of the dolls, were they accurate or representative of what a black child would look like. So I think she kind of took it into her own hands and like created what she believed is a good representation or a positive representation of images for these people and
Mm.
these kids. And also I think I love the fact that all the colors were vibrant and there was a direct usage of dolls, because it kind of draws on the fact that we all have been at a point where we've played with something, made a toy, a doll, teddy bear, something that we all clung on to. And I think everybody has that same shared experience of playing as in youth.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but like a lot of us have that shared experience of playing in youth. So it's something that could connect us all to like, or ground us all to this piece a little bit.
There's a whole line of um, Barbie, I guess it's the Barbie brand that
Mhm.
now have Barbies and Kens with various disabilities.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was checking them out for the exact same reason that you're talking about,
Exactly.
right? What does
Yeah.
wheelchair Barbie look like, and what does blind Barbie look like, and
Mhm.
all of, how tropey are these looking? And of course, the thing about it is that they all look like Barbie, which is like
Exactly.
Barbie is, if she was if she was representative of a real human, she'd be like 12 feet tall and like not be able to hold her own body up because she's like, less than a size zero, all of those things. And I think if I remember correctly, I looked at so many of them, but if I remember correctly, blind Barbie had a white cane and still had a pair of high heels, and it's like, I don't know, and still had a really
Yeah.
short skirt, and I was like, I don't know. And I'm not saying that there are blind women that don't look like that. Like, sure, absolutely there are. Majority, maybe not. Like, I don't know, right? But it's like
Yeah.
certainly not me. But but that's the question is, so maybe you need a blind Barbie that doesn't look like that and a blind Barbie that does, or
Okay.
or maybe we just need to like not have a Barbie that looks like that at all.
Yeah, maybe we have like Build a Barbie. I miss the Build a Bear days where you could just build what you want. Maybe we need to build a Barbie so everybody gets their
Oh,
own. You know?
Barbie.
No, but I think you're completely right in like one, we're just getting dolls with living with disabilities, which we're in 2025. Like it's kind of late. But also, what kind of representation are you getting in these communities? Are we looking at different size, shapes, different disabilities, a combination of disabilities? Are we talking about like on the spectrum, like for example, with visual impairment, are we talking what's the representation of that? And yeah, so I think everything like this, even though this piece is specifically speaking to Black communities and Black experiences, I think it does kind of carry the same information and um, premise across the board, which is representation needs to get better to make everybody feel human and feel seen. So yeah,
Representation matters.
yeah, exactly.
We all want to see ourselves authentically represented and with as little harm as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the key. That's the kicker.
Yeah, with as little
Right.
harm as possible. Um,
All right. Uh,
okay.
so next one from me is the last one we're going to talk about. This is by Mosa McNeilly, sorry. It's called Bones slash Meditation on the Middle Passage Memory, made in 2002. It's a mixed media installation. So this installation is tucked behind black curtains at the back of the exhibit, which the black curtains dims the light in that room. So it's on the floor on a raised wooden platform, which is about 4 meters by 2 meters. So a little bit big. Well, pretty large actually. So the surface has been covered in a very fine white dust, which a lot of people think is sand, but it's actually salt. In the center is a mosaic composition of a bird with, and if you want to think about a bird, kind of think about like a flamingo or a Canadian goose with a long neck. Think about a bird with a very long neck and a larger body.
Hmm.
So in the center of the mosaic is a composition of a bird with a long neck, and the neck is stretched backwards as if it's looking behind them. The mosaic pieces are handmade pieces, and if you can zoom in for me again, Rick, onto the mosaic pieces. Um, so yeah, the mosaic pieces are handmade from ceramics and are painted or printed with different colors and patterns. So some are like if you can see on the legs, there are some clippings that have newspaper clippings. Um, and yeah, there's just a variety of mixed material for used to make it. And in the mouth of the bird, which you can barely see, but in the mouth of the bird, they're holding a small African mask, so in the beak.
Hmm.
So the platform is actually lit up by a projection above it of the ocean. So it's projected downward onto this large platform, and it's like a projected of like an ocean. So thinking about like the reflectivity of water and how it moves and swishes under the light, that's what's pretty much being projected. And it includes fish that are swim by, reeds that gently move along the current, and with it is coupled with the sound of water or waves rushing by. So the it's very quiet. It's very melodic, honestly. Whenever you go, it's like super dark and super quiet, but only hears water, and it's very I love that room. So I'm going to read the extended label written by the curator, Andrea Fantona. Mosa McNeilly's installation is an invitation to meditate on and pay homage to our African ancestors who did not survive the Middle Passage. The installation consists of an assemblage of found items, including slate, wood, an iron ring, bone beads, cowrie shells, Atlantic sea salt, and a Ghanaian wooden mask, as well as a projected imagery of ocean and ocean sounds. So each bone in this path of bones is created using encaustic medium, graffitio, metallic pigment, gold leaf, copper leaf, aluminum leaf, and a photo transfer. Figments of the image and text range from archives that represent diasporic knowledge to transferred onto different surfaces of some stones. McNeilly's performatively and ceremoniously constructs the Andrinka Sankofa symbol. The Sankofa is a mythical bird with its head pointing backwards and an egg in its mouth while flying forwards. At the center of this installation, through acts such as preparing the space with burnt offerings, invocation, buffing, grouping, and placing these bones and stones in a texmonies of colors and textures and shapes and sizes. The Ankan term for Sankofa refers to the act of going back to something that was left behind. So that's pretty much the extended label of this piece. Just a little bit more description on it. It is a mosaic piece of a bird looking backwards at his flying forwards with the salt, with a base that is like salty sand. It looks kind of like lumpy or jagged or like moved. And that's made out of the Atlantic sea salt. And the actual mosaics are full of just different ceramics. Like some have newspaper clippings, some are just painted and printed on. But all in all create this mosaic of the Sankofa bird, which is a mythical bird. If anybody's ever seen what a Sankofa looks like, it's just like a large body bird, kind of like feathers as like the tail or rear, and a long, large neck, almost giraffe-like, not that size, but giraffe-like. And it looks backwards with having something in its mouth. Usually it's an egg, but in this case, it's the African mask. But yeah,
There's some really interesting colors here. So the pieces that are ceramics are like because it's a mosaic, they're like pieces that are laid beside each other. So some of them look like they could be like I don't know, like the size of a chocolate bar, you know, like a Hershey's bar, or like for example, and they're just sort of laid. Some of them are on top of each other. So my curiosity is the way this piece is assembled together. Like, could somebody just go and walk up there and take a piece and pull it away? Like, it's not like it's not nailed or glued or
no, it's placed there.
placed.
Yeah, so I mean, theoretically, yeah, somebody can go and grab it. I hope no one ever
Basically, when
does
it
that.
travels, every time you take it down, you're reassembling it.
Yeah, the artist reassembles it, or they would reassemble it in a very specific like pattern. And Fiona can correct me on this, but when artists have like a piece in an exhibit, there's a very clear instruction on how things need to be laid out or composed or hung. So in this case, that was deliberately placed in this pattern. I don't know if it, again, I can't say if it's the exact same pattern every single time and the exact same pieces in that spot, but it is to create that same imagery of the Sankofa bird.
Yeah, and I think so. I loved seeing, yeah, that was like one thing that came up a lot in the tours was it's not, the work is not protected. There's not like glass around it.
Yeah.
And so you can get really, really close up to it. And with the sand, there are all these impressions in them, like patterns, even like little footprints. Like when Mosa was installing the work, she had her she had her grandchild with her. And so she had like she had her granddaughter like kind of walk in the salt as well. So it had her footprints in it. And I would say like throughout, because it was there for a couple of because the work was in the gallery for a couple of months and it is tucked behind, like you could kind of tell, like every time I came to visit it, the salt was a little bit different right at the edge. Like you could tell that people were kind of playing in the salt, with their fingers and, like drawing little hearts and, and that kind of thing. But, I think like to your comment about, like the placement of it, I think like the artist installing it, it took days, like it took 3 or 4 days. And that was a kind of labor of love, labor of remembrance, kind of like what Jade was talking about, that kind of placement was a ritual, like the title of the exhibition. It was a ritual to remember. So and then it has to be kind of undone every time the show would come down, and then redone, and then undone, and then redone, and then undone. So I think that labor was also really significant.
Because it's got a beautiful mixture of colors in where would be the body feathers, and I guess that would be the wings, in the center of, kind of what I would consider the inside of those abalone shells, the blues and the purples and the it kind of has an iridescent feeling to it, and I'm guessing that's a trick of the light and the salt and all that kind of stuff that's in the space, or it just could be my eyeballs that don't work very well. But for me, that's
No.
pretty cool.
You're right.
Yeah.
But also, I think the layered effect of the colors and stuff like that also give that feathered look. So like a bird.
Yeah.
It's not just like a surface. It's like textured and feathered, much
Texture.
like that you're seeing within this piece. So yeah, I think it's very abstract. Well, it's not abstract. It's very realistic, but in a mosaic structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
very interesting.
you know exactly, if you have the privilege of sight,
Yeah.
you know exactly what you're looking at, which is a bird, even though it's like a bunch of carefully laid bricks.
Yeah, and
Random
like
objects.
just think about it as like a flat rock, or like flat rocks, or wooden pellets or chippings.
Yep.
Some of them vary from like I'd say bigger than the palm of your hand. Some of them are the size of your pinky. Some of them are like a couple fingertips long and wide. So it's just a bunch of different materials and pieces put together to create an effect of a bird, or a Sankofa bird specifically. So it's very textured, very broken up a little bit too. There's spacing where there's not stones touching. Yeah, so it just gives a very like textured feel to it. Uh a little bit like, I don't want to say like rugged, but like a little
Yeah.
rough around the edges, but like in a nice way.
Yeah, it's like if you were rubbing your hand over slate or something,
Yeah.
the textures on it. These are if you ever get a chance to touch mosaics, like you obviously can't touch this one because it's the pieces aren't fixed into place. So you would move them if you touch them. But there are some like mosaic tiles and things like that that are made of all sorts of things, like those little cabochon glass things, which are kind of like little domed glass. They're really, really interesting to touch. I wish people would make more more mosaics that can be touched, but they're also super heavy because of the types of materials, and then the types of whatever material you need to have to embed that material into, whether it's you're sitting into concrete or into glue or into whatever you're using to fix the mosaic pieces or tiles into the frame or whatever it is you're fixing it into.
Yeah.
But this is cool. This is probably one of my favorite pieces visually, which
Okay, love that.
I'm a blind person, but
I mean, like, I don't know if anybody would ever get to see this, but if you do, like, it's such a like nice room to be in, just to hear, to even like, even if you get to touch it, because everybody touches the sand. I mean, the salt. So touching the salt, yeah, there's a lot of texture going on here, but it's a beautiful piece.
yeah.
It's a very beautiful piece. Yeah. Do you have any other questions about this piece before we go into like the question and like conversational period?
Well, this is the last piece that we've got. So I think what we can do, Jade, is we can let our folks from the audience, if they have any questions or thoughts that they want to share about what they've experienced, I would love to give them the opportunity to come in and share those questions. In order to do that, I need to have Rick take that photo down, unfortunately. Oh, no, there we go. I was able to bring up my panel. We do use the raise the hand function because then I can, oh, it's my poor computer not working so well. Megan's got a hand and then Ben's got a hand. So let's go to Megan first.
That was amazing. Now, I know the African religion about the Africa, Nigeria, and Sudan, and of course Muslim and all that. But what is when you see a bird, that mythical bird? What religion is that? A bird with the bird with an African mask. What religion is that? I'm just wondering.
So it's technically, the word Sankofa comes from Ankin, and Ankin people are like West African, mainly like Ghanaian. But the Sankofa is
Oh.
really, but the Sankofa is really a bird that is well known across the entire African continent, and even further than that, I think also in the Middle East. There's a lot of like callings to it. I knew it originally from my Egyptian community members, but it's also very present within like West and East Africa as well. So it's just like a mythical bird, kind of think like the phoenix. If you think about how like the phoenix is like well known, and I think I don't know exactly where that comes from, but yeah, that is mainly based in Ankin or Ghanaian culture, specifically the word itself.
But what about Middle Eastern? When you say Middle East, what religion is that? What does the word call to that religion?
So it's not really religious based. It's more like a spiritual, just like mythology kind of. Like it's not really drawn to specific religion. I've seen people use it just across various religions and like ethnicities. But it's more like a mythical being. I want to say like the unicorn, but it's not like that. But it's just a representation of the understanding of looking back or going back to something that you've left. So like all the people. Yeah. That's why when it looks back, it's flying forward but looking back. It's because it's looking back at all the things it's left, but it's still continuing forward. So it's just like a
Okay.
concept.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, but that's a really good question. Sankofa comes from like it's really originates in Africa in various forms. But yeah. I see Ben.
Yeah, come on in, Ben.
Okay, I have got one of the funniest questions of them all.
Okay.
Now, remind me, who am I talking to?
You're talking to Jade.
Jade. Oh, Jade, what a beautiful name. My question is, what inspired you to bring this wonderful experience to VocalEye? Was it kind of they came to you, or did you get to sort of, come to them?
So I work with Carleton Art Gallery, and I'm the educator-in-residence for this exhibit and the other one. So Fiona, who is technically my boss, reached out to me and told me about VocalEye and the work that was being done, and I was really intrigued. I thought this was an amazing concept. I didn't hear about it before, so I'm happy to share this now. Yeah, so I think it was, I don't know exactly what the arrangement between Amy and Fiona was. However, I'm here. Maybe Amy, you could speak more to that, but yeah.
Gosh, that's
I did have a side question.
Go ahead, Ben.
What's your favorite piece? LOL, that the last one was my favorite piece, so what's your favorite piece?
It's always hard for me to pick
and a favorite. Sorry I put you on the spot.
No. It's okay. I love all the pieces, but I think I always change my mind. I know I just said that the Chloe one, the doll one was my favorite, but going back, I really like the Khadejha McCall one, the one with the spiritual worker and the advertisements, just because of how like it was one of those pieces that I can look at for very long, or you could just want to touch it. You just want to put your hands on it a little bit because there's so much going on. And I don't know, even for me visually, it was very intense to look at the first time because I also did not know what was going on. But it's something that like I just took me a minute, which I kind of enjoyed. Like, but I do love the Sankofa piece as well because it's like a more like a sensory piece overall. Like it's not only the auditory, you can see visually, you can even touch it if you do. Technically, we're not allowed to. Sorry, Fiona. But if you were to touch the salt, and like it's just like a very sensory experience for me personally. So I do enjoy that, especially if it's a dark room. It's like very like contained. Yeah. So I'd have to say those are my two. And yeah, so I agree with you with the Sankofa piece. It is amazing.
Well, we only had 6 pieces,
Yeah, there's 10.
and there's 10. So were there pieces that were in this exhibition that we didn't see tonight that you were like, oh, that one was really cool? Because that's the other thing is like, you're giving us highlights, but there were
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of pieces. Some pieces that were not mentioned. There's the augmented reality one, which is like VR reality, which I can't remember everybody's name because there's like 10 different names. But that's I didn't really see that one too much, but I know people did like that because it's VR, augmented reality, it's showing different scenarios. I think it's called Fear Factor, talking about the representation of Black men in our society. Um, there's another piece, and Fiona, let me know if I'm saying any, missing any. Um, there is, oh my God, the piece by Barbara Stephenson, Prezo Stephenson, which is a photograph of braids using like either extensions but also materials like fabric and everything being weaved together in a very close image of it to show you the textures and patterns. Who am I forgetting? I literally
Yeah. There was the Fear Factor video, the augmented reality one that was about like martial arts.
Mhm.
And then I think there was another painting as well. Yeah.
Just visualize it. Oh yes, there's
Yeah.
one painting by, I want to say Christina. It's right by the wall where your office is.
Yeah.
I think it's about like a 5 foot long by 4 foot wide painting, acrylic painting of a little girl, like as if she's walking into a
Mm.
like down a path, like a child in a school uniform, like her back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Claire Carew. Yeah.
That's what it is. Like her back
Yeah.
facing us and her walking forward into like her future, but also her ancestors, like very detailed, but that image is more of like tones of brown, orange, red, like very deep colors. Kind of a little dark. Not dark as in scary, but dark as in like dark. Um, and it's one of those pieces that yeah, I think that's more like close to what you would think when you think about a painting. Like that was very much like a a brush to canvas kind of painting. Similar to the ones, actually, I don't think anyone I just showed was like that. Oh, like the Winsom one where it's actually painted onto a canvas. Yeah. The one that feels like weaving or like a bunch of layers, that one's more like stamping or silk pressing or silk screening, sorry. So yeah, those are some of them. I know there's more. I'm just like in my head I'm thinking about the other exhibit too, and I'm like, oh. But yeah, this
we
is
had a tour. We had a tour of that one with Pansy last month as well. Yeah, the
yeah,
Dream of
yeah.
Return. Yeah, that was really nice too. Yeah.
That's right. But yeah, that's my favorite. I would love to hear what everybody else's favorite, if you can like type it in the chat, or if you can like say it out loud if you want to, but I enjoy all of them kind of.
That's an open invitation, folks. If you want to come on in and unmute yourself and share a favorite, if you'd like to, we will entertain that.
I will entertain it, I promise.
We'll entertain it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's your treat before Princess makes an appearance.
Oh yeah, she's hiding in my laundry on the floor.
Oh wow!
But no, I'm gonna get her for you. You know what? While we wait, I'm just gonna grab her for y'all.
Fiona, what's coming up next at the Carleton University Art Gallery? I guess
we have
now, but
yeah. So we just opened a new mural commission. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Oh, Princess.
She hates being up here.
yeah. Look at that little
Beautiful. The
face.
green eyes.
Yeah,
Fluff ball. She's just
exactly how you described her.
Yeah.
there we go.
Love
Oh,
it.
he's hiding.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we commissioned a mural at a downtown site called Carleton Dominion Chalmers Center, which is Carleton's like performing arts center. So this an Ottawa-based artist named Yomi Orimoloye. And so he did this incredible, it's like a incredible mural that he drew digitally, and then we had it produced huge on vinyl, like these basically like a big sticker to be on the wall in this performing arts space, and it's gorgeous. He was really responding to the space. He called it the third door because it's in this kind of transitional space before you go into the big main hall, and so there's a kind of the curiosity of like what lies beyond these doors, like the amazing arts and music and theater that you'll see beyond these doors. So he kind of represented that through a kind of childlike figure, and then there's like a sun that's like rising, and these kind of beautiful, very actually like kind of surreal shapes and kind of landscape. Yeah, the colors he chose just really go well with like the dark wood because it used to be a church, and so it's quite like traditional kind of church architecture. So yeah, we just launched that, so that's very exciting. Yeah,
very cool. Will that be permanent?
It'll be up for a year, and then we'll commission another artist next year as well. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Very cool. Very cool. It's always interesting stuff happening down at CUAG.
Thanks, Amy.
We enjoy having you all in the space. So
Yeah.
I know there's going to be some things that are changing around there while you take your leave, but
Yeah.
I hope in the next season here for the Almost Live we'll be able to showcase some more of the stuff that's happening down there. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
awesome. Well, friends, this has been a real interesting conversation, and like always, you take what I think I know and you bend it and you twist it, and you open my mind and you open my heart, and you shape me into a different person every time I'm in space with CUAG stuff. One of the reasons why I enjoy being in this space so much, because I want to be a lifelong learner, and I want to grow and stretch as a human, and be in spaces that aren't my lived experience. We're more alike as humans than we are different, and I think this is part of how we share that context about who we are as humans, and how we, I don't know, dare I say it, try not to repeat the past. I mean, how else do we learn from atrocities from the past, is to try and learn from them and say, oh, why are we doing this? We should not be doing this. Like, anyways, I digress because I'm frustrated with the world today. Yeah, sorry, Jade.
I see that Nancy Gill turned on their mic, so I don't know if they want to say something before you close out.
Nancy, do you have a thought, or are you waiting for a chit chat?
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh no, I really enjoyed listening to it. I like the last one, really nice. That you,
The bird?
yeah, the Mexican and the yeah, that I enjoyed.
Oh, the mosaic one, yeah, that one was nice.
Yeah, and the color, the way you described the colors and how shiny and everything else, it reminds me of how the tiles are always shiny on Mexico floors. And then you brought that bird up, I go, wow, that is a Mexican for sure, because everything's done in clay, or I don't know what kind of ceramic are they.
Yeah, like ceramic, like tile pieces.
Yeah, and you described it really good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Nancy. All right, well, it's almost tomorrow for you folks. So almost. I got you just under the wire. So I just want to thank you both for spending your time with VocalEye this evening, and I hope it won't be too long until we see you back in the space.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
Me. Thank you. I had a great time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope we didn't scare you off.
No, not at all. You guys are all so welcoming. Thank you for sharing the space with me, for real. I had a great time.
Awesome.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.